thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you.
So I'm actually a cat person. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I started out, I mean, I grew up on a farm with multiple animals, but when I was off on my own, I had cats for years and not dogs, because I didn't live in a situation where it made sense to have dogs. I was in apartments and stuff like that. And so, but I always had at least a cat. So I am truly a cat person. They are near and dear to my heart. I could not foresee a time where I was not living with a cat. I find them phenomenal. So, cats are a little tricky. And as we know, there's all sorts of lovely adages. You know, dogs look up to us, cats look down. And what this really at the root of, I think, the mysterious, enigmatic nature of cats is the fact that their partnership with us has not been collaborative in the way that dogs' partnerships with us have been. So when we started working with dogs, we were really literally working one-on-one with them as they were herding for us or hunting for us. We were there, they were taking instruction with us and from us. Cats, not so much. So even though we've used cats for their remarkable hunting skills, we have really left them to their own devices to utilize those hunting skills. So in other words, we might put them in the barn, but we don't stand in the barn and try to in any way direct their hunting skills. It's like, you know, have at it. Here's the open buffet. I'll get back to you later. So I think one of the things that, one of the reasons why we connect with dogs the way that we have is they're very social creatures in their own right, having nothing to do with us. So when you are incredibly social creatures, you develop communication systems, expressions, body language, and some vocalization. And I think because we're social creatures and dogs are social creatures, we really picked up on their openness and their communication system early on. And they, of course, remarkably tailored it to us, right? So they've evolved to read us like an open book. Cats are amazingly solitary creatures in the wild. There haven't been half the amount of studies about cats that there have been about dogs, because cats were considered not trainable, which is not true at all. And then, of course, you know, they have all these tests about animal intelligence, all based on how we measure our intelligence, which has nothing to do with uncovering the true intelligence of any other species, right? So cats are remarkably stoic. Because they're incredibly solitary in the wild, they don't have a lot of obvious body language that relates to connection. Now that doesn't mean that they don't connect, as anyone that lives with a cat who's been kneaded in the middle of the night and purred on, and I have a cat that drools all over me. He's awesome. Most of the ways that they relate to us and connect with us are the way that mother cats relate to their kittens. But nonetheless, they tend to be fairly stoic in that regard. And so that can make them hard to read and for some people hard to connect with. They are, however, wonderful, wonderful candidates for operant conditioning and classical conditioning, the very same things that we've been using with the dogs. And so shy kitties were one of the big topics on the questionnaire that went out, helping shy kitties come out of their shell more. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work on that today, and there's a couple of modifications to the tools that we use that I think is going to make this easier, might not, but we'll see. We're going to have to experiment. So first and foremost, up to this point, we've been using clickers, and clickers are loud. So there are, do you have a regular clicker too, Heather? I'm looking to see if I have one. I do. So if you have a shy cat and you're near them and you do that might not help us, right? So the cat might even get more shy at that point and say, no, I'm not going to play with you. There are quieter clickers, right, which is probably makes a lot more sense for a cat. If you are short on shy clickers, you can always use a ballpoint pen. That's a click, okay? So we have to be mindful. They've got amazing ears. I don't know if you know this, their nose is as good as a dog's. They're phenomenally amazing smellers. They're amazing smellers. They are relatively, it's hard for them to focus on anything that's a foot in front of their nose. They're much better focusing beyond that. Their eyes are really big, and their muscles can't really focus their eyes within. That's why their whiskers give them a 3D sort of breakdown of what's between. So if a cat's kind of peering at you and doesn't seem to really see you, they might not. Also, they can be long-sighted and short-sighted depending upon the environment they grew up in. So cats that are raised outside tend to be long-sighted because they have to see longer distances, right? And indoor cats tend to be short-sighted. So they're really sort of amazing, you know. But do not underestimate their smell, and they have a vomeronasal organ too. So for those of you that were here the first day when we actually felt, did we do that the first day? We feel the vomeronasal organ of dogs. So here's what's so funny is I just found this out this week. I get so excited when I find out that I was like marginally right about something, but really missed the boat. So, so the vomeronasal organ, which I have been talking about for years in dogs, and cats have them too, and possibly I think snakes. Someone came up that amphibians have them. No, it turns out that all mammals have vomeronasal organs except primates. Isn't that amazing? So it's like, I was like, they have this special social nose. It's like, no, you human beings don't have it, but everything else has it. So, cats have really good senses of smell. So when you want to work with them, you really got to have stinky, excellent food. They also get full faster. So we need to think about teeny amounts of food. And while things like temptations and crunchy things might seem to make sense because you can hold them in your hand and deliver them, they take a while for a cat to eat and break down. So what we're going to be working with today, and we'll see how well it works, is I have all sorts of canned food. My cats reluctantly donated it to the closet. It was really funny because when I opened the closet to get it out, Heather pointed out, she's like, look who's at the cat door. And Clooney, my drooling cat, was coming. And we're going to be using tongue depressors. So we're going to first start by charging the clicker, right? So whether we use this or the quiet clicker, it's going to be a click, and we're going to offer a little bit of food, click, offer a little bit of food, click, offer a little bit of food, so that the cat really quickly learns, ooh, when I hear that sound, something good's going to happen. I'm going to have a little food. And then we're going to start using it to train. And today we're going to be shaping. So if you have a shy cat, it's unlikely that they're going to go from hiding to coming up to the front of the cage, right? That's the goal behavior. The goal behavior is, hey, you little kitty back there, I need you to come up and seek people out. Because as we know, if you come in to adopt a cat, you're going to look for the cat that attaches itself to you, right? People don't pick cats. Cats pick people. That's a rule of thumb in rescue. And so we want to teach these cats how to pick people, and that requires them to move forward in the crate or cage. So,
just to remind, just for the few people that weren't here for the other two, I think you're pretty clear, but charging the clicker means teaching the cat that a click means a treat?
Yes. Yes. And what do you mean you weren't here for the first two?
Oh, they'll be noted.
How dare you? Yes. So this is pure Pavlov. And so we're just a quick recap. We are using a marker, and the marker can be a clicker, the mark can be the pen. We're using a unique sound that the cat generally doesn't hear, or dog, in its environment. And we are saying whenever you hear that, you're going to get food. So that when the cat is making a decision that we want to see more of, and this happens, and they get food, they start doing that behavior more and more to hear this to get the food. So
you could never write anything in front of your cat ever again.
Never.
Use a pencil.
But were you? I mean, were you ready? Poetry? Were you musing in front of the kitties? It's easy to do. They do inspire poetry, there's no doubt. And here's one of the things about cats that really has to be embraced because they're solitary creatures. There are some dogs you will meet, I don't meet many of them, but there are some dogs that you meet that will happily work for love and affection. That's not true for cats. You gotta pull through with the food. You got to. And, you know, again, this is part of their evolutionary history with us, right? And so anyone that lives with a cat, especially a cat that gets to go outside, knows that they still hunt. It doesn't matter that we give them food. They're still hunters. So there hasn't been enough time from an evolutionary standpoint for their hunting skills to fall off, even though they don't really need them for the most part anymore. And so our relevance to cats is different than for dogs. Now again, that's not to say that over time, cats can't develop deep bonding relationships with human beings. They absolutely can. I know this in my own life. But they need a little help. They need a little help. And you know, I like that I always have to kind of prove myself to a cat. I think that's cool, you know? And I actually, and here's the thing, one of the things we've talked about with dogs is how environmentally focused some of the dogs are here. They kind of come in, when we brought them in this room, they're like, oh yeah, there are people, that's fine, but there's kind of, you know, I'm sniffing around, and you might be throwing me, but I'm kind of, you know, they're really environmentally focused. That's how all cats are, right? That's how all the cats are. So, so you gotta bring the goodies. You gotta bring the goodies, and they gotta be meaningful for the cat. So before you can start training, we need to find the food that's gonna make them happy, that they're willing to work for, and then we need to establish a simple communication system with them, and that's what a marker does. The marker says, hey, in all the decisions you might be making, when you hear this sound, whatever you were doing was the absolute thing that caused this food to occur. And then we'll start seeing more of it. So, goal behavior is to get a worried cat or a shy cat to come to the front. We're gonna shape this. Shaping is known as successive approximations. So what we're not gonna do is bribe and lie. So here's what people do. Shy cat in the back of the cage, hiding. Food. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Kitty shows a little interest in it. Oh, come a little closer. Nope, can't have it, come a little closer. Got to come a little closer. You know, so, and I see people do this with dogs all the time too. They use food to lure a dog from where it feels safe, but they don't pay the dog for the move they make. They say, no, actually now you gotta do more. Oh, great move, but now you gotta do more. That's a lie. That's a total lie, right? So what we're gonna do instead is, oh, you showed a little interest? There's some treat. Can you even, oh, little interest, click, and treat. So we're just gonna take little baby steps. And for the shy guys, we're not gonna get them to the front of the cage today. It's highly unlikely. We'll most likely, if we could even get them to take a paw step or two towards us, that's great. But what's really awesome about this is not only are we teaching cats that coming out of hiding can be really beneficial for them, we're teaching them that working with human beings pays, that it's a really good thing. And that's going to reinforce all the positive associations we're trying to make. Because, you know, once they learn to come up to the front of the cage, good things happen. Then when they see anyone, they're more likely to say, hey, human, you got some food for me? And by the way, cats have adapted with us in interesting ways. Feral cats are virtually silent, except when they're mating or in pain. They don't meow. But anyone that lives with a cat knows that they've got a lovely vocal repertoire, because cats realized that we were not very observant. And so they realized that to get attention, to get the can of food open, to get the door open, they were gonna have to be a little bit bigger. So that's where, and they've got amazing meows. There's like 1 million different meows. It's really interesting. But those meows are strictly for our benefit, which I think is really interesting. And a purring cat actually doesn't want you to move. A purring cat says, I'm comfy, can we just stay where we are? So purrs are really not understood. There's a lot of studies on those right now. So here's what we're gonna do. As a group, we're gonna go up to the lobby because there's more room. And we're gonna demo a little, you guys will pick a good cat. What?
So, is that why a purring cat can go to biting or scratching you because you may have shifted or moved? It's not that it's changed its mind that much, it maybe you didn't do what it wanted?
Okay,
It makes sense to me.
how many of you have experienced the cat that's, you're petting it, it's loving all over you, and all of a sudden it turns into a vicious cur? It's like, please, it happened to me this morning, okay, in my own bed, okay? It's really interesting. They're not sure why, but the general thought, the basic hypothesis now is that you're triggering a fixed action pattern. So all of us have fixed action patterns where there's 5 or 6 steps in a behavior, and once the first step is triggered, you go through all of them. And where you see this with dogs and cats is hunting. So very often, if the first part of stalking and chase gets ignited, they can't stop until they finish the whole cycle, which is pouncing. Now, dogs can actually have fixed action patterns interrupted. Cats, it's much harder. So something's happening that's triggering it, and then they're in that fixed action pattern and they don't stop till the pounce and the death bite, which just happens to be on you.
Makes sense.
I tried to talk to my cat about it.
Also is used for other situations.
Oh, yeah.
When they're in
Pain,
or
yeah.
afraid or all kinds of.
But, and if you think about it too, when they're in pain or when they're afraid, part of what they want to do is not move, right? But where they noticed purring initially was when mother cats were trying to wean their litter, and the litter didn't want to wean. And so they were purring and trying to actually hold their mother down. And so, but purring's really, so it's a typical kind of, this is where cats are so interesting, because they don't have the same kind of repertoire. A dog has a really varied repertoire because they're social creatures. They've had to pick up all of these kinds of skills. Because cats are solitary, they haven't really had to consider how to connect and communicate to others, because most of their interactions are with themselves or with the litter, and then the litter's gone. And so they have a more limited number of behaviors to call upon, so we see them in more, the same behavior in all these different circumstances. They're really fascinating, the kitties. Basically, we're still living with tigers. No, we really are. They have not, their evolution, culturally, we've evolved in 4,000 years, major culture evolution for us. We've gone from hunter-gatherers to sort of city living and farming and kind of dwelling. Cats, 4,000 years is not enough time for the biological evolution of any animal. Nothing gets changed in 4,000 years. So they are literally one step away from the feral beasts that, people used to bring them in and tie them by strings to grain stores. They were leashed. Ha! Try leashing one of my cats right now. So, they really are wild. That's what makes them sort of fun. But, occasionally, you are on the other end of that.
But that is, I agree.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, it does make it fun. Okay, so any questions about what we're going to be doing? We're going to be going up, meeting a cat, seeing what food we have that the cat likes. Then we're going to charge the clicker, and then we're going to start shaping some behaviors to move the cat closer to us. And then my hope is that you guys, armed with a tongue depressor and some cat food, can go off and practice this, and we'll come around and coach you and see how you're all doing. Casey?
I was gonna say something that works really nice for that is canned baby food, either chicken or turkey with no onion or garlic. And I have a can upstairs.
Excellent. You will be getting that can of baby food for us, and we appreciate
It's
it.
really mushy. And it's not-
That's awesome.
Just a question about
Sure.
cats versus kittens. Is this something you should be doing kittens, or does this sort of interfere with their normal development?
Now, it's really interesting. They did a study with kittens in terms of the first 2 months of their lives before they went off to a new home. They had a group of kittens that were handled 2 hours a day by people, and a group that was only handled 15 minutes. And so right before they went off to their new home, the researchers came in and put the cats on their lap. And the cats that had been handled more often hung out longer on the laps. The cats that were handled, right, that doesn't surprise anyone. But they then went into the home. So the cats got rehomed at 8 weeks. 2 months later, they went into the home. So at this point, the cats are 16 weeks old, 4 months. And they put the cats on their lap. Total opposite response. The cats that had the least amount of handling hung out on the laps longer. The cats that had more handling, I know, Daisy's like, what? You had that 17-degree tilt. What's going on there? And so then they went back when the cats were a year. And both groups were relatively similar. And so what they think, this is their hypothesis, they haven't run this study in a large scale, but their hypothesis was that the cats that were handled more in the first 8 weeks of their life were bonded to their humans, and when they changed homes, it really messed them up. It was much more traumatic, and they hadn't really had time to acclimate yet, versus the cats that weren't handled as so much. They think they sort of went with the flow better. But by the end of the year, everyone had kind of bonded and found their place to be. Now, there's some cats that are more genetically shy than others. So my basic rule of thumb, and this is true for dogs or cats, is the more you start playing with them and working with them, the more dendritic branching you're creating in the brain, the more neural connections that are being formed in the brain, and that creates a less reactive dog or cat. It also, right from the get-go, teaches whatever species you're playing with that playing with you is fun. And that's going to make them really interactive.
Just real quickly before we go upstairs, what if you have a cat that's not food motivated?
Food's all you got. Because, and I'll tell you why, every cat eats. So the bottom line is that you might not have the right food. It's not that you can't use toys. So in dog training, we use toys a lot. Here's the problem. Studies seem to reveal that cats get bored with toys really fast. And seems to be the factor that really seems to create the boredom is the toy doesn't change. So as we know, whether it's a cat or a dog, play is an opportunity for them to practice their hunting skills. Well, dogs will play endlessly with the same toy, right? Anyone that has a dog if anyone wants to go play fetch with my Australian Shepherd, she will literally play it for 50 hours a day. So, and my hand's sore, so anyone can do it. Here's what happens with little cats. They get tired or bored really quickly with a toy, unless the toy starts breaking down. So it's like the hypothesis is, if it's not breaking down, this must not be prey. This must not be something that's worthwhile for me to survive. So forget it. And if you take it away and bring it back, they might show mild interest in it, but half the enthusiasm they showed the first time. And then, once they're done, they're done. And catnip, they actually have to have a gene that makes them sensitive to catnip. And some cats have it and some cats don't. So toys really don't work well. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. So you might find that you have a cat that wasn't working for food, but if you brought out the feathers and you were hopping them all over the floor, that cat was going crazy, use it, right? So it's a general rule of thumb. But the bottom line is if you have a cat that's not eating, it's dead, right? So on some level, at some point, cats are going to eat. So what it might mean is that the environment you're trying to train is so stressful the cat can't eat. So then we need to think about, okay, how can we make this less stressful to promote eating? We might need to cut down on the cat's meals or work before the cat's fed, which is ideal, so that, the cat's more motivated to eat. But what generally stops food intake is dislike of food or stress. Because if you think you're going to die, you don't eat a pizza, right? Who can eat a pizza if they think they're going to die? I'm serious. Because eating... Awesome. But eating is a long-term project from your body's point of view. It takes time to break it down, convert it into all the things that need to be converted. And if you're running for your life or potentially need to run for your life, your body can't be bothered with it. So that's the key. So, at some point that cat's eating, so we need to find out what food the cat likes, and then we need to find out what environment is conducive to that cat. And, it might mean a little food on a tongue depressor that you leave in the cage and you have to leave the room. I've used leaving the room as a reward. I don't take it personally, because there are some animals that have really negative associations with people or don't know people at all. And so if they're scared to eat in front of me, I'm happy to leave. That's a click, I've left, right? You don't even have to use food, just your leaving can be the reward. So those are things you can experiment with too. There's a way in. It just takes creativity and, thinking sometimes outside the box.
But what you're saying is it's usually food. Some type.
Again, all animals eat. So now I actually have had a client that had, I kid you not, it was an anorexic dog. And it wasn't physically, actually now it's turned out to be physically ill, but at the time, there was no physical cause for it. But what was really interesting is that it wouldn't drink water out of a bowl. It would have to be running water in a stream, and wouldn't take food out of any kind of container. So this, I don't know, what it led me to believe is that it was a learned behavior. So this dog got into something and got punished bad enough, or, because it was just such a weird kind of thing. But I worked for 4 weeks, and then liverwurst was my breakthrough food. And the second that dog had a bite of liverwurst, it was like, wait a minute. I totally think I can do this. But I was going through my whole repertoire. I was trying everything. So, but again, if the cat's in an incredibly stressful environment and can't really eat anyway, and then we're putting pressure on it. So this is the thing that's really critical about cats. They really would rather initiate contact than have you initiate contact. And so, and an upright tail is a cat curious to initiate contact with you. Not a whipping tail. Okay. Cat people, Not whipping tail. So cats are, because they're suspicious and territorial and environmentally centered, they are very suspicious of agenda. So you have to go really zen with the cat. And I say this about dogs too, but dogs are much more forgiving than cats generally about it. They're like, yeah, you got an agenda, but is that a meatball? Okay, I can live with your agenda. Cats are more like, I could technically kill for myself, so you're gonna have to do a little better than that, right? So no pressure. So it's usually pressure that shuts them down. Any other questions? Everyone ready to go play some kitties? Okay, we're gonna go play.